is this? What do you recognize this to be representative? For most of you, you're going to answer a dollar bill. But for this example, we're going to say it's the whole enchilada, your life savings, everything you've accumulated during the 40 years of accumulation of your work. But see, ladies and gentlemen, we have a problem because that's got to last you for 40 years. And yet the government's going to want its share. And then inflation's going to want its share. And then the largest expense that you're going to have in retirement, healthcare, is going to want its share. And now you're left with this. And then the kids come home early and they're going to want their share now. So what does this have to do with retirement planning? Well, you save for 40 years and you have this small little piece. And it's our job to take that little piece and grow it back into a whole dollar bill for your entire savings to eliminate risk in retirement and to have tax-free income potential so that you have a balanced portfolio of retirement so you don't lose everything and the IRS isn't your biggest beneficiary. My name is Bill Walters. I graduated from Drexel in 1991 with a master's in finance. And the goal here is to just educate people and support people through the difficult times. No matter who's in president, no matter who is supporting us in the Oval Office, we always have obstacles to overcome, especially when it comes to finance. My personal background, I have a daughter who has special needs, but is more of an IDD type of person. So she does not have Down syndrome, but I do speak on the topic of special needs trust. I also cared for my mom who didn't have proper insurance and long-term care plan. I was the long-term care plan. I took care of her for the final 6 years of her life. So when you're meeting with someone like myself, you have somebody who has expertise in two things: helping someone who is aging or a parent that's aging, arrange caretaking, removing fall risks, scheduling doctor's visits, having personal care assistants come in. And I want to take that 6 years of personal experience and reduce it to 20 minutes of learning with you so you don't make the same mistakes I made. Who do I help? I help families like mine who have complex but imperfect situations with aging and sick parents, children with special needs, but especially those in the sandwich generation. What does that mean? It means those people that are stuck in the middle. They have aging parents, they have children attending college or going to attend college, and then they have themselves. And when it comes to themselves, they don't know what to do first. Do I save? Do I save for retirement? How do I plan for the future? And what's the possible best outcome to have from all this work? Does anybody know someone who's worked their entire life and still can't retire? Does that resonate with somebody? How about this? Someone who retired, went into retirement and had to go back to work, like as a greeter at Walmart or something like that, or had to start bossing tables, right? Because it wasn't enough. Or how about someone who thought they had the world cornered and then 2021 hit and their assets dropped by 40% and they have to go to work an extra 7 years to make up for the losses they incurred because they had too much stock market? We're here to address all of this, right? So I just wanted to share this with everyone and let them know that this isn't about the lifestyles of the rich and famous. It's about us, all the regular folk, the people that work, because we want to give people opportunities and make a difference and live in abundance in retirement. And it doesn't take as much money as you think. For 46 years, most financial people have said that in retirement, your taxes will go down in retirement. For 46 years, this has been true for most Americans. We created a universe of tax-deferred retirement saving plans, IRAs, simples, 401ks, TDAs, 403bs, Keoghs, ESOPs, SEPs. And tax-deferred is a brilliant concept. Pay no tax now, let the money grow, pay tax when you take it out. And wow, did it grow. Americans' retirement plan assets have exploded to $30 trillion starting in 1974 to now in 2023. But today things have changed. So why are we here? The 27 Tax Cut Act, individual rates were lowered approximately across the board by about 3%, as you can see, but only until 2025. Corporate tax rates were cut by 14%. That's huge. Changes are permanent. But the U.S. budget deficit has doubled in the past 3 years. Federal debt is now 79% of the GDP and projected to be 144 by 2049, higher than any time in U.S. history, even higher than post-World War II at 106. And if tax cuts are extended into 2025 debt, it could go up to 219% of GDP. So I'm going to explain it to you so it makes sense. If your annual income was $100,000 and you put all your charges, all your expenses on the credit card, at the end of the year, you would owe $219,000. Now, I want you to let that sink in for a second. That meant you earned $100,000 and you spent $100,000, but you owed $219,000. That's exactly what our government is doing right now. They're overspending. And this is all before the 2T Corona aid virus package. Basically, it means that the government needs money. Retirees are sitting on $30 trillion. And for the first time in 46 years, taxes are going to go up, way up. Now, it's not obvious how they're going to do it. They're going to increase fees in Medicare and Medicaid. They're going to be higher taxes on Social Security. They're going to lower thresholds for taxation. They're going to reduce the extended benefits, and they're going to change the rules of inheritance, the Secure Act. What does this mean? Well, the taxes are going to go up in retirement, and you're only good to 2025. In 2026, the tax laws are going to be changed, and you have to protect yourself. So you need to plan ahead. Anybody recognize the gentleman on the left? It's Randy Pausch. He gave the famous last lecture. Gentleman on the right, James Gandolfini. He was famous for his role in The Sopranos. Randy Pausch had the ability to know when his soft landing spot would be. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer at age 45. And before the internet was the internet, he spent time doing the talk show circuit, and he gave this famous last lecture that has been seen more times than you can imagine. And at the age of 47, he died after a long fight. Now, the benefit of this is that Randy knew where he was going to go. So he took care of his family. He took care of his wife. He paid off the house. He took care of the kids' college education. But he also taught us a few things in his famous last lecture. Well, the first thing he said was, what wisdom would you try to impart to the world if you knew it was your last chance? So time is all you have. The most important thing you have is time, and it's how you use that. So the key question to ask yourself is, are you spending your time on the right thing? Because all you have is time. Be prepared. Luck is truly where preparation meets opportunity. And to be cliche, death is a part of life, and it's going to happen to all of us. I have the blessing of getting a little bit of advance notice, and I'm able to optimize my use of time down the home stretch. So why did I say these things? Why am I talking about Randy? Because Randy had the privilege of moving forward, right? Now, the next gentleman, James Gandolfini, completely different. James died unexpectedly on a vacation in Italy. Only 20% of his estate went to his wife because he didn't have a game plan. $30 million went to taxes. So, James, if you remember the famous last scene in The Sopranos, he's sitting in a diner, him and Carmela, his wife, and they order onion ring. And they pan out to the parking lot, and AJ, his son, is coming in, and he walks in, and they pan into a car. They don't know why the stranger's on the screen, but they pan back out. So AJ sits down, and they pan back out to the car again. And then Meadow pulls in, and they pan out to that other car again. And so Meadow pulls in, and you're like, what's going to happen? Is he going to get whacked? I have no idea what's going on. And all of a sudden, art imitates life. It goes black. Just like his life and the screen, he's on vacation. He's having the time of his life in Italy, and he passes away with no game plan, no future organization, loses $30 million to taxes. You can't be caught flat-footed. You have to have a game plan. The state does not recognize verbal. Everybody recognize the gentleman on the left. That's Prince. Prince, big estate in Minnesota. Over 400 songs unpublished, unknown about in his vault, but he didn't have a will. 6 years held up in litigation divided between two parties. In the end, his estate was estimated to be worth $154.6 million, something like that. $17 million went to legal fees. And since there's no will, 40% of his estate and its value is going to go to Uncle Sam. Now, just because the first three people were famous doesn't mean that this doesn't apply to you. So the gentleman on the right is a representation of my personal client, Ralph the Rooper. Now, Ralph was a hardworking man. He was married, and he was simple. When I say simple, he lived a simple life and liked to get things done in pen and ink. He did not believe in the computer system. So I was over at his house on a Friday. He was getting done work early and to sign an ink and paper term life insurance policy application for $2 million. And he said, Bill, I don't have the money today. I can't give you the check because my refrigerator broke down. Now, he did not have a backup refrigerator in the garage. Now, me being raised Italian, I have a backup refrigerator in the garage and also a freezer. So in case something like that happens. but he did not. So he said, can you come back next week, next Friday, when I get paid, and I can afford the $200 for the application? I said, sure. So then we fast forward to Wednesday, and I get a phone call from his wife, and she said, I am the proud owner of a $2 million refrigerator. And I said, I don't understand. Basically, what happened was that she said Ralphie was on the roof, and he had a heart attack, and he fell, and he didn't make it. And so instead of acting on the policy when it was the proper time, he delayed, and now she owns a $2 million refrigerator that's working perfectly well, but she has to go back to work at age 51. So the point of the story is that it doesn't matter when you move forward, the best day is always today. Don't delay what you can do today for tomorrow, because you don't know what life's going to bring you, and you want to be prepared so that you can take care of those people in the future. So 6 steps to legacy planning and guiding for the future and generations. So a recent Gallup poll showed that 55% of adults don't have a will. That's down significantly from 2005. Older Americans are more likely to have it. Now, death without a will or trust. The negatives are no official direction to guide your family. Family members may disagree about your wishes. Estates go into probate and is divided according to state law, and no final message to the family. So, ladies and gentlemen, at a minimum, get a will. It's not the best, but at a minimum, get a will. At this point, I'm checking in with you because it's important. Does your employer provide term insurance? If your employer does provide term insurance, it's extremely important to see if it's transferable, meaning if you leave to go to a better opportunity or if you retire, can you take that policy with you? If you can, great. What I found was 99% of those policies are non-transfer, which means, wow, you paid all that money into a policy and you didn't get the benefit. So please check and make sure that it is transferable. So if you have an HR department, it would behoove you to check with that.
Yeah. And Bill, could you just give me a brief, what is the difference term policy? Can you just define that for the audience if anyone's unfamiliar?
The difference between a term policy and a whole life policy. The term policy is for a period of time. It's fixed. It does not have cash accumulation. It will pay you a death benefit, but most term policies are 10, 20, 25, or 30 years. They increase in time. So as you age, the more it costs. The negative of the term policy is that 99% term policies never get used. They're just used as a peace of mind or a placeholder, as compared to something like a whole life policy, which enables tax-free cash accumulation as well as a death benefit. Now, there are benefits to both, and it all depends on your budget and also the ability for you to protect and prepare for the future. So just so people understand, and I will also include more definitions as we go on later on, but that's just want to make people aware of the two differences. Sudden incapacity. God forbid something happens to you, a car accident or stroke, something medical related, and no one knows what your medical wishes are. No one knows what decisions need to be made for you and who has the authority to handle your finances. When you're rendered unconscious, unable to talk, unable to think clearly, you want to have 2 frameworks for your organizational thoughts, meaning power of attorney. There's a medical power of attorney and there's a financial power of attorney, and they're 2 separate and distinct things. So one problem with estate planning is basically the perpetuation of denial of death, because people don't really want to think about that because it's a scary topic to ponder, but it's important to think about it because you want to make a statement or a smooth landing spot for the people that are your beneficiary. So when you have estate planning, no will or trust or advanced healthcare directives, without it, you overlook provisions for guardianship for minors, financial strains, cash shortages for survivors, and there's no tax planning, which is really important. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have a tax plan, it's trouble. Estate planning. So I'm going to say it like this. When you have an estate plan, a will is better than nothing. A trust is usually the best alternative, and an estate plan encompasses everything. And I know that there are people here with legal backgrounds that will go forward with this, but I'm just going to share this with that. If you look at the picture of an estate plan, it accomplishes everything: inheritance tax, wills, the power of attorney, trust, probate protection, Because an estate plan, you say a picture says 1,000 words, this is what it does. It encompasses all these things, and it enables you to get your wishes written down and a way for it to be organized and followed. Planning for what happens to the assets after death. It allows you to control the distribution of assets. It avoids disputes among beneficiaries. And if you don't think there is disputes, I know that there are attorneys online that can verify this, that there are disputes that occur after someone passes. And most importantly, you want to minimize your tax implications, both in life and after death. So will versus a trust. Basically, a will is a public record. It operates under court oversight. There are going to be delays. It'll be more complex and it has upfront costs. A trust, you're going to avoid probate. You're going to keep things in privacy. It means the public won't know what's going on and you have control. It has greater flexibility. You can always amend it and it's simple, especially if you hire the proper attorney because they know what's best in the state that you live in. They're the experts. They do this all day long. The probate process. Basically, the court validates the will and oversees the execution. It delays the access to the assets. It becomes public record, and you basically have attorney's expenses. Now, New Jersey inheritance tax. Based on who inherits, not the total asset of the estate. The spouses are exempt. Other rates are from 0 to 16%, and there are significant tax considerations, especially when you set up a trust that we will talk down later down the line on a one-on-one. So turning assets into income. 401ks must take a minimum distribution at age 70.5, but now in 2023, the mandatory new distribution will begin at age 73. You should consider Roth conversions and annuities and other options. So what am I saying? There are many ways to improve your financial situation. And when I say that, there's ways to reduce market risk. There are ways to have zero floor balances on your assets in annuities so you can never lose money and eliminate the market risk. And there's also ways to accumulate money income tax-free in retirement so you're not exposed to taxes in the future. So we're going to talk about 3 types of money. Now, most people understand the first type of bucket there, which is your general salary or income, and it's 100% taxable. You understand this because when you get a paycheck, Uncle Sam gets their share. Second type of money and bucket is taxed upon distribution. So when we talk about stock, you purchase a stock and we say you purchase it for $100, you hold on to it, and it goes up to $200, you decide to cash out. You're taxed on the capital gains or on the growth, the $100 gain. So 200 minus 100 is 100. That's what you're taxed on. In the calendar year, you take the distribution. Now, same thing applies to a 401k and a 403b. 401k, if you're a regular worker, and if you're in the world of education, it would be a 403b. If you're working for the government, it could be called a 357 plan. When you get distribution, you're not taxed on the money you put away. You're taxed on the growth or on the compounded interest that occurs and the year that you take it out. And there are ways to lower that, and we could discuss that privately. But for this scenario, once you take distribution, you're going to be taxed at the going rate in the level that you're in. The third type of bucket is tax-free. Index universal life, whole life insurance, and Roth IRAs. So I'm going to pick on the Roth IRAs. Those people who earn $154,600 a year or greater cannot do a Roth IRA. So if you earn below that, you can do a Roth IRA. Standardly, it's $6,500 a year, and they do allow you to catch up. But for those of us who would earn more than that, you're not allowed to participate. So your options are limited to the 2 solutions above, index universal life or whole life insurance for tax-free accumulation.
So we'll pause there. We did have a question in the chat, Bill. It was sent directly to me. Anna asked, I'm married. Will my husband automatically be appointed if I have a sudden incapacity, or do I need a trust/will? That's a good question.
So I know we have somebody from a legal background here on site. So if she wants to speak up, she can. If she doesn't, then I'll answer the question.
Hi, everyone. Sometimes that depends on states, but traditionally, if you do not have somebody appointed as your power of attorney, legally, they do not have the right to speak on your behalf if you're incapacitated. So if you don't have a power of attorney form and you become incapacitated, they will need to seek guardianship over you, which is a court proceeding. So that is the legal requirement. Whether a hospital would listen to a spouse, they may in practicality, but for decisions to be made, you would need a healthcare power of attorney and or guardianship, depending on your situation.
Why is a trust important? Because you're allowed to organize your thoughts into writing through an attorney. Okay. That's why it's important, because it enables you to get your wishes in writing and have them fulfilled. Now I'm going to go with when I say basics, into the basics of savings. So the power of compounded growth. If you look at simple versus compound interest, simple interest, and I'm going to make it easy for everyone. Simple interest is if you have $100 and you put it in the bank and they give you simple interest at 3%. Every year on the anniversary date of the date of deposit, you're going to get 3%, or in this case, $3 added to your account. So in the year 2, you will have $3 added again, and it'll be $106. Compounded interest is you grow with interest year after year, and you get interest on your interest. And this is really important concept. The next slide will show you the difference about investing early for a solution versus late. So if you look at the slide, Jack starts investing $200 a month. And in that $200 a month, he starts at age 25 and he saves to age 65. And he has approximately like $550,000. And he has $96,000 of his own money that he's put in. So you can see the power of compounded interest, and he's accumulated for 40 years. So he's put in 96 and he has approximately $550,000. Now, Jill, who starts 10 years later, so she's accumulated for 30 years, same amount, $200 a month. And look at the difference between her accumulation. She's put away, her total, and she has approximately $225,000 or so set aside for retirement. So those 10 years are crucial to that money double. And then we have Joey, the guy from Friends who gets his first big boy job, and he starts at age 45 and he puts away money for 20 years. And you see what he's accumulating, just barely over $100,000. And he saved for 20 years. Now, the fact is, all three cases are still fine. Less than 10% of Americans have $100,000 set aside for their retirement. It's a pretty scary fact because they live paycheck to paycheck. Now, what can happen with Joey once he gets his money out of that 401k is that money can really explode. But I'm not going to do that for this slide. I'm just telling you that any savings is better than no savings. But you see, the earlier you start, the better it looks. And the key to everything is consistency over time. So be consistent. As you get raises, the difference that you are getting as a raise, if you're putting a percentage away, you want to put that towards your savings or your retirement. Grow your retirement savings as consistently over time so that you put the same percentages into your retirement plan. Supplemental plans. So if you're self-employed, you can open up a solo 401k, even if you're losing money. Yes, you can get your blood and sweat equity out and open up a solo 401k. If you have a side income or a side hustle, consider opening up an IRA. If a spouse does not have a 401k, you can get a spousal IRA. All alternate forms of saving for retirement. Minimizing taxes. So a Roth IRA is after-tax money, and basically you don't pay taxes when you take distribution. That's why it's so good. Versus a traditional IRA, which it's pre-tax money, it accumulates, you remember that second bucket, and it gets taxed upon distribution. So tax diversification, really important here. It's a concept where you look at how your money's going to get distributed in retirement and how you can minimize taxes. So strategically planning to reduce your tax implications in retirement. And these strategies to reduce that tax bite are imperative, especially after the year 2025, because you don't want to give Uncle Sam 40% of what you've accumulated in your lifetime. How to organize your finance. If you're married, or even if you're not happily married, you want to consider consolidating your finances in your accounts, putting everything together, organizing it in one clear structure so it's easy to follow. You want to automate your savings and investing. What do I mean? It means you want to have a game plan of what you're setting aside on a monthly or a weekly or biweekly basis. You want to learn to track your spending habits. What do I mean? Well, look, if the Amazon delivery person knows you by first name, that might be a problem. Or if you pull into Starbucks and they say, get ahead, as you pull in and you pull up and they already know your order and they already have their credit card on file, that could be a problem as well. So budgeting for goals. Now, most people don't understand this, but it's not good to just always throw things on a credit card, that you should organize, plan your thoughts, and have a game plan on how you want to attack mutual spending goals, retirement goals. Get a plan, stay organized, and stick to it. So I'm going to go over some basics of customized estate planning, and I've been harping on this fact. Tax implications when you're taking your 401k in 2026. I can't stress enough to understand what that tax law does and the possible implications. You could lose upwards of 40%, between 36 and 40% to taxes, and there's ways to avoid it. Now, I have a free tax guide. It's in the booklet of information for 2023 and 2024. But since we're in the tax year of 2023, you can get that along with many other questions. So just fill in your information in the sign-in form. Happy to send it to you. It's free. And it kind of gives you a starting point on what to think about when you're heading into estate plan. A living trust. It's created when the grantor is alive. Testamentary trust is created after the death of the grantor. A revocable trust, something that people get confused all the time. Terms can be altered while the grantor is still alive. An irrevocable trust, terms cannot be altered when the grantor is still alive. Now, the key to understanding all these is just to go to your trusted attorney in the state you live in, because then you don't have to understand it, they do. But just remember that an irrevocable means that you can't change it when the grantor is still alive, and that's the one you want to remember. A revocable can always be changed. Now, we're going to get into certain types of names of trust. Some you'll find useful and funny, and others you'll say, yeah, it rings a bell, but you don't want to know why. The first one is a special needs trust. Now, this is near and dear to my heart. It's designed to benefit the individual with disabilities without jeopardizing their eligibility for benefits assistance. What that means is, if you have a child that's on the spectrum, IDD, and they're receiving government assistance, the money you receive is supposed to go for two things. One, the shelter. Two, the food. If you receive any extra income, you do not have a special needs trust set up, they could lose their eligibility for the money coming in and the medical benefits. So you don't want to do that. Now, the importance of setting up a special needs trust is that all the services that the child is eligible for but doesn't receive from the state can be subsidized in a living trust, and it can be made payable to that living trust so that you don't miss out on having the child have, or adult child having the best version of their life. The next type of trust is for those individuals that own two or more properties. Now, it's called a beneficial spendthrift trust, and it's best used to reduce your liabilities, lower your year-to-year taxes by as much as 70%. So if you own two or more property, and hear me loud and clear, two or more, it allows you to pay zero capital gains for all your real estate investments. Take advantage of this trust. Okay? Take full advantage of it. If you don't know anything about it, I can recommend someone to you in the state that you live in or the state that you own the real estate in to take advantage of the spend. The next type of trust is a pet trust. So owners of cats or dogs, say you're an older individual and the dog or cat has the true possibility of outliving their provider. You can set up a special trust to take care of them to the manner that they deserve so that they're not put into a shelter and they're taken care of. And it's a good thing. And then Alex's favorite is next. That's the generation skipping trust. Allows you to just take care of those grandchildren instead of your own child because they're so much better anyway. That's just examples of some fun ones. Now, there's a list here of all different types of trusts, and this is not all inclusive, but it gives you an idea of the many different types of trusts that are available. Again, I would definitely consult an attorney and explain to the attorney what's going on. And I'm happy to refer you to one so that you can take advantage of the protection and the tax implications. If there is no estate plan, what happens? There's a number of obstacles that take place: probate, creditors, lawsuits, judgments, and legal fees, which will all come directly out of the estate plan. So the best thing is to get organized, get it in writing, hire someone who's reputable in the state that you live in that knows the laws where you live so you don't get caught with proverbial pants down, right? You don't want to be caught flat-footed. You want to have protection and you want to have proof, right? Because you don't want problems. Estate clarity. You definitely want to schedule a consultation to discuss your goals with an attorney as well as with me. Receive a complimentary estate plan analysis by booking time with me so that we can organize our thoughts and have your goals, because it's not really what's important to me, it's what's important to you. Your goals, your dreams, your desires, and I create a vehicle to get you from point A to point B. So if you book an appointment with me, you will receive a complimentary Yeti mug and it'll be delivered to your house. This represents the beginning of your life as far as working, before you start your 40 years, your accumulation. So you have a small boat. Now, for simplicity's sake, everyone does agree that it's easier to pull away from a dock than to pull back into a dock. So when you start your journey towards retirement, you don't have many assets, life's simple, but as you proceed and move forward with life and you get your first house and you start taking vacations, your boat changes in appearance and you start accumulating things, and anybody who's ever moved doesn't realize how much they own until they actually move. So you accumulate all these assets. And so when you're sailing and say the ship is leaving from the ports of Ireland, right, and you're heading towards the port of New York. And as you're heading to the port of New York, the waters are deep, the sailing is smooth, and you don't have any problem. But about 20 miles out, the harbor patrol comes in and they take control of the ship. They climb up, they guide the ship in because they don't know what's underground. Because, yeah, you could put that up, but you could hit a sandbar and all your assets could go tumbling into the ocean. This is very equivalent to 2008 and 2021 when the stock market crashed, basically down 38 and 36% respectively. But if you have the harbor patrol guiding your ship in, you land safely in the port, minimizing your taxes. If you look at the top, you see that there's only 3 little containers missing. That's the tax implication because you only have one shot at retirement. Unlike the accumulation phase, right, where you have time to make up the difference, when you retire, if you take a hit of 30 to 40% in your taxes, you don't have time to recover something. Whereas if you game plan for taxes in retirement, you'd never take that hit because there's no market risk and no exposure. And either you're accumulating income tax free or you're accumulating with minimal market risk, no time for downturn. And that's why the person is smiling. Even though the ship looks tired, they're smiling because they're living in retirement happily. Because this is what retirement looks like: overlooking an ocean, enjoying the fruits of your labor, and where you want to be in retirement. You want to relax, take in nature, do the things you couldn't do, like vacation, hang out with friends and family, and try to encapsulate making memories and enjoying with it. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. I know everybody took time out of their day to spend it with me, and it's greatly appreciated. And it's open for some questions while we still have time.
We have a couple of questions. One in the chat was from Jeremy. He said, what was the real estate tax protection trust called again, Bill?
Yeah, that's called a spendthrift trust, and it's actually called a beneficial spendthrift trust. If you own 2 or more properties, that's when it'd be applied. Now, one thing to keep in mind that if you have property, say in Florida, and property in New Jersey, which is really popular nowadays, you want to make sure that for tax advantages, because you don't have income tax in Florida, that you make sure you document your time there, that it has to be 6 months and 1 day in order to be your full-time residence, so you can avoid questions by the IRS. Mitch asked a question.
Yeah, and then Mitch asked another question. Are there annuities that are tax-free?
Okay. An annuity is a vehicle or a solution in which your money can grow exponentially. It is a tax-deferred model. But what's different about the solutions that we provide here exclusively is that these annuities have a zero floor. What is a zero floor? A zero floor is your money does not lose. It means that if the market goes down 36%, your earnings are zero for that year, but you don't lose 36%. And if the market goes up 8% or performs at 12%, you earn 12%. So if you never lose money, you don't have to fill in from losses. And it usually takes 5 to 7 years to recoup your losses from a down year. So that's what the difference is. So Mitch, you asked, is it income tax free? No. But if you grow and your money triples in 20 years and you're at a different economic tax bracket, there's ways to take distribution of that to minimize your tax exposure. And I could teach you that on a one-on-one.
Yeah. About the property one, does it have to be like a house or can it be like any type of property?
So you mean you own land? Is that what you're telling me?
Or like, so I have a private practice, but the goal is to eventually have something like an actual, my own private practice with my own building and all the things. If I had more than 2, would that still qualify? I mean, with that.
Yeah. So if it's not too invasive in a public forum, what type of private practice do you do?
So I'm a massage therapist.
Okay. So say you converted a house into a massage studio, right? that would be a perfect example of having 2 or more locations. So yes, it would apply, right?
Okay.
So it works. It also depends on location, right? Because of knowing your tax structures and how to minimize capital gains and future for beneficiaries and things that people don't take time to consider. When you start a business, most people are not going to tell you this. You should have an exit strategy, reason for exiting. If you don't have an exit strategy, that's a problem right there, because you need to know where you're going. You're not working to pay bills. You're working to accumulate abundance and then retire. So now an exit strategy doesn't mean that you can't give it to your kids or your family. What it does mean is that you have a game plan to leave. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So one topic that didn't get discussed in great detail is elder law or elder care, or taking care of those that are aging. And I can't stress enough that while your parents or while you are aging and you still have your full clarity and capacity of getting things done in writing, getting their wishes and dreams in writing of how it should look, whether it is caretaking at home with personal care assistants, whether it's assisted living or full-time care, but make sure it's to the wishes of your parents or yourself. Have it done in writing, get it laminated so that you take care of those who took care of you. Pay it forward the proper way. It's a difficult conversation to have. And if you're afraid to approach your parents, I'm happy to do it for free. I have no problem talking to them in a nice way so that it's not a burden to you, okay? Because it's important to follow up and give them what they think the golden parachute or the golden year should look like, vacations and everything else. That's all.
Making good financial decisions requires an understanding of our current condition, all the financial holdings we've acquired over the years, and progress relative to our goals. The challenge is that most of our financial holdings don't get the attention they need because we simply don't have time and expertise to optimize them, let alone question their place in our life. Most of us need a little help getting it all together. The truth is that other people in our household are often dependent on us and our decisions, and we just can't afford to be wrong in this department. Sometimes we could use a little help. So what if we could start by organizing all our financial decisions into one simple, rich visual, an asset map? What might we notice that's missing or out of place? Who might we collaborate with to help make better decisions? What ideas might we implement to get into a better situation? With new visual clarity, we might just make more informed decisions that serve everyone in our household. If a picture is worth 1,000 words, then an asset map is worth, well, a lot more. Take some time to start your discovery and facilitate a more meaningful financial conversation.